Oh my goodness, what another week of spoilers. Hello everyone and welcome to Go Again, a Fabulous Cast. I'm Andrew with you as always. So this week was all about the Mechanologist, and that's what I want to do today is go through and recap all the spoilers that we saw this week. All right, so before we get into it, this stuff is literally hot off the presses in terms of when I'm recording it. This stuff came in like maybe an hour ago. So what I'm showing up right now is Azalea, Ace in the Hole. We have the Ranger, ladies and gentlemen. I think now, obviously my own preferences and my own feelings are coming to show here, but I strongly believe this is going to be a very popular hero in the next set. She is awesome, right? So she's the Ranger. She's shooting arrows off, right? So we had a couple spoilers. Please go check out that article that they have up on Fab TCG for the reveals. I will, of course, be doing a full episode later, much as I'm doing this for the Mechanologist for the Ranger. But again, this is hot off the press, and she's looking very awesome. So please go check that out. And meanwhile, let's refocus. Let's get back to the Mechanologist, who seems a lot less exciting now, at least to me. However, we did have the opportunity also, Dice Commando was able to spoil. There are some pretty neat things going on here with Dash the Inventor, right? So we did see the young version. I do have to say, personally, I like the art on the young version a lot better. She's a typical or she's not typical, but she fits in with the 440 that we've seen on all the other heroes except for the Wizard to date. Okay, so we also saw the Teklo Plasma Pistol. Remove a steam counter from this in attack, and then you can pay 1 to put a steam counter on it. So functionally what you're doing is you're paying 1 for a 2 attack, but then of course get the interaction with steam counters and some of the other items. But the big deal with her is that she gets to start with an item in play. So that's actually what I want to start with here, is going through all the various items. The first one we'll do just real quick, because we already hit it on this channel, is the Induction Chamber. The Induction Chamber really just helps to feed the gun. There's really not much more to there, where you're right, you put 1 on it, you can help feed the gun. Okay, it does cost 2, so it can start in the arena with her. All right, the next one is Aether Sink. So Aether Sink enters the arena with steam counter on it. Action 1, if there are no steam counters on the sink, put a steam counter on it, go again. And then instant, remove a steam counter from the sink. The sink gains Arcane Barrier 2 until end of turn, which means that if your hero would be dealt arcane damage, you can pay 2 and prevent 2 damage. So I don't think this is that great. Just because it's expensive. Now, I get it, right? If you're up against the Wizard and it's your only method to block that arcane damage, it may be what you have to do. But let's really think about this. You're paying 1 to put the counter on to enable you to pay 2, which only blocks 2. So it's not even a 1-to-1 trade. You're trading 3 for 2. I don't know that that's that great. But again, you can start with it in play if you have to, and always have that on board if you need it. And maybe I'll end up being wrong. Maybe just the way that the Wizard works, this is something that can get you enough advantage to squeak out the game. I don't know, but functionally, just from a value standpoint, I'm not too impressed with this one. Okay, Cognition Nodes. This is another item. This is a 1 cost, so it can start in play as well. Action 1, if there are no steam counters on the node, put a steam counter on it, go again. Once per turn, attack react, remove a steam counter from the node, target attack, action card gains. If this hits, put it on the bottom of your deck. That's pretty effective if that's something critical that you need. I think as we go through, we'll see that there are several actions here several attacks here that we would want to recycle. I think it will ultimately end up depending on how much specific stuff she ends up having for her, all in all in the end. And how many critical attacks you have, right? If there's a bunch of stuff that you can put in there to balance out, maybe this isn't as useful. If there's a couple critical stuff that you really need to get the job done, then maybe the nodes is something that you want. All right, so Dissipation Shield. This was spoiled by the Reaper Game Store. This is also an item. This is a 2-drop item. The shield enters the arena with 4 steam counters on it. At the beginning of your action phase, destroy the shield unless you remove a steam counter for it. So you're constantly paying for it, so it'll still last, 4 rounds. Instant, so this is a good example of one you probably wouldn't want to start with in this case, right? You probably want to have multiple in your deck and drop it. Instant, destroy the shield. The next time your hero would be dealt damage, and that's damage, that's any damage, right? It's my interpretation at least, is any damage. Prevent X damage where X is the number of counters on the shield, right? So if you're not taking hits, you're losing value on the shield. And that's, again, why you kind of want to drop it. You just really absorb it, kind of maximize it, and then move on with your life, right? So I don't think you're starting with this in play. I think you're just going to throw it in play as kind of a defense. All right, Hyperdriver. So this is also an item. Hyperdriver enters the arena with 3 steam counters on it. When it has none on it, destroy it. Once per turn effect. When you boost a card, remove a steam counter from Hyperdriver and gain energy. That's pretty interesting, right? So we haven't really gotten into the actions yet with boost and talked about that, but kind of keep this one in mind as we go forward, that this really just helps you kind of keep that thing going on, okay? Next is Optical Monocle. This was spoiled by Radio Reflex. The Monocle enters the arena with 5 counters on it. When the Monocle has none on it, destroy it. Action, remove a steam counter from the Monocle. Opt 1, go again. All right, so this is actually very, very, very good for her because of boost, which, you know what, let's just move forward and get to boost. Okay, so, well, hold on. Teklo Core we have next. So this is actually a dash spec. This is 0 drop, so not going to start with this in play. Teklo Core enters the arena with 2 steam counters on it. When the core has none on it, destroy it. At the beginning of your action phase, remove a steam counter and gain 2. This one's pretty sexy. This is a really good card. All right, here we get to our boost. So Overloop, this was spoiled by Let's Play Games, is a 2-drop for Overloop hit. And again, so this is actually a full series of cards, so they change based on the pitch value. What we're showing here is the 1-pitch red version. So if Overloop hits, put it on the bottom of your deck. Boost, as an additional cost to play Overloop, you may banish the top card of your deck. If it's a Mechanologist card, Overloop gains go again, right? So boost is something that's a keyword that at least at this point is specific to the Mechanologist. This is something we've seen on several of the cards, and it seems pretty decent, right? If you can make it hit, right? And that's really going to be the challenge of her, is how consistently can you build your deck with Mechanologist cards to make this effective? You know, I haven't sat down and done the math yet, but I would suspect that you probably have to have roughly 5/6 of your deck, maybe a little less than that, but somewhere in that range in order to consistently make this happen for you. Of course, I'll throw up the opt stuff now, but of course you have the option to opt and kind of set your deck up, and that maybe gives you a little more flexibility, but again, that's also using card slots. So we will see how effective this ends up being. I'll tell you this right now, she's going to stink in draft. I'll tell you that right now. Or at least these cards will stink in draft. So I don't know, this seems reasonable. The other problem you're going to have, of course, is the energy thing, but then, let's go back up to the Teklo Core. You can get energy from the Teklo Core, and you also have the Hyperdriver, which lets you gain additional energy when you boost, right? So those certainly help you. Next, let's go to Throttle. So again, this is a full series of cards, 2-drop. This is a 1-pitch version. There's really nothing else going on with this card. It just hits for 6, defense for 3, boost, standard boost again. So you can just keep plowing it on as long as you can get the energy and as long as you can get the cards on top. All right, next we have Spark of Genius. So this was spoiled by Marco Victory, a longtime guy in the community. Thank you very much for doing this. He wrote a really nice article explaining the XX there in the corner, which we'll talk about in a second. But I do encourage you to please go check out his article. So this is a dash spec. Search your deck for a Mechanologist item card with cost X, put it into the arena, and then shuffle your deck. Then if you have boosted this turn, draw a card. And that's pretty cool because this one is XX. So if you can make the cost of this card 0, it may be just in kind of a natural follow-up to a card that, so like let's say you've been able to successfully boost, but you don't necessarily have the energy to keep going. You could just drop this and help you get that item in play, right? Because it'll get it back in your hand, right? So now let's go talk about the XX, right? The XX is very fascinating here because it's not X, it's XX. So the way this works is if you have a 0, X is 0, which means your total cost is 0. If you have cost 1, it's XX, which means it's 1, 1, which means the cost of the card is 2. If you try to pull a 2-drop, it's going to cost you 4, which is definitely not going to happen if you're depending on that draw card part. Okay, so keeping that in mind, I think this one is okay. Again, we did see, let's go back up to the, we have the Teklo core, we have the monocle. If you can go pull those for 0, I think this card's exceedingly effective. If those are already burnt out, I don't know how effective this card is. But again, it is something, tutors are generally, we use the term tutor, that's an old Magic the Gathering term. What it means is going through and looking through your deck. We've seen that can be very effective pretty much in every game ever made, right? So this card could be very good as long as it's kind of in the right situation. All right, next we have Pour the Mold. Put a Mechanologist item with cost 2 or less from your hand into the arena. This is really good because this costs 0. If you have boosted this turn, put a Steam counter on it. Go again. I like the potential of this card, right? I haven't figured out any massive combos. Again, I know you guys out there are way smarter than I am, and you guys are probably way ahead of me on this one. But being able to go pull that 2, get the free counter on it, which in most cases we've seen cost 1, right? It either comes in with it or you have to pay 1 to put on it, like in the case of the Induction Chamber. There's a huge amount of value in this card. Now, do note that you would have had to have boosted this turn. And I do want to make a quick side note on boost, so I'll go ahead and put Overloop up just because. In order to successfully boost, you have to chuck the card from the top of your deck. That card does not have to have hit, meaning it does not have to have been a Mechanologist, right? So you would have boosted even if you didn't get the success criteria from boosting, right? And I hope that's clear, but obviously, when you boost, you want it to work so that you can get your go again. That said, for a lot of these card effects, having boosted still works regardless of whether it was success or not. So you're not completely hurting yourself if you don't have 60 Mechanologist cards in your deck, right? Like if you miss, there are still options that you have available to you. Okay, and then maximum velocity. So this one. This was spelled, by the way, by catfootprint.tw. I don't know about this one. I think this one's, obviously it's got a 10 attack. Like that one, this could hit hard, but I think this one mostly you're going to be hoping that you just put it in your deck so that you can top deck it when you boost. So play maximum velocity only if you've boosted 3 or more times this turn. That's pretty, I do see plenty of situations, especially with all the opt options that we have out there of making this happen, making the 3 times happen, but I don't know where you're getting the energy for it. So I suppose, right, and again, we haven't seen all the cards. There may be some 0-drop boost. It may be out there, in which case this would be very good. I just don't see, obviously the payoff for this is massive, so it's going to be really hard to do, right? That's a self-explanatory thing here. So I'm just not overall impressed with this one. This next card, however, shoppingexpress.com. This came out yesterday. Whenever you boost a card this turn, gain 1 action point. Draw a card, go again. So again, go again. So again, to boost, all you have to do is actually chuck the card. You don't have to successfully hit. So in this case, to get go again, meaning, it doesn't give you go again, it gives you an extra action point, but it's effectively the same thing, right? In order to get that extra action point, all you have to do is boost, which means if you boost successfully, you get 2 action points. That's at least how I'm reading this card, and you get to draw a card. This card seems really, really, really bonkers. And again, it's a Majestic, which is kind of what we would expect to be one of those high chase cards. But I think this is the fundamental Mechanologist card, right? You can pretty much set up to just go, right? And assuming you can get all of your gear in the right order, everything set up perfectly, you could deal, I don't even know how much damage. Like you could deal game-winning damage easily with this if you can get everything set up and in the right spot. So I think, just kind of overall review of the Mechanologist, it's very interesting. I think that, let's be honest, functionally she's an engineer, right? Which I relate with. I think that there's a lot of thinking and planning that has to go in with this, way more so than some of the other heroes we've seen. Again, we're seeing in this set with the Opt that a lot of it has to do with even, like, you're not only setting up your turn and your next turn, but you're actually looking ahead and trying to set up your deck accordingly. And that's not easy stuff to do. This is definitely a thinking man's game, or a thinking woman's game in this case, right? So I do think that there's even more pre-planning involved here, which is kind of cool. It's very attractive. I think that the people who make this work are going to be probably your cutting-edge players in Fab out there. Because I think that the amount of effort you have to put in ultimately to her and to get her to work is probably one of those very diminishing return type things. So I would be very surprised if we end up seeing a lot of people gravitate towards a mechanologist at the very top end level, just because I think it's going to be a lot harder to work than some of the other sexier things that we see out there. But again, I could be wrong. I'd actually be more happy to be wrong. I really like the look of these cards. They're gorgeous cards. Great feedback there. I'll be very interested to see how this all plays out. But again, this is very much spelling to me to be a very majestic and super heavy deck. So I think that, at least compared to some of the others, like especially some of the first four, right? So we'll see how this plays out. But anyway, let me know what you're excited about. Please don't let your excitement for the Ranger that was spoiled, my own excitement for the Ranger was spoiled, cloud this. I think there's a lot to be taken in here and digested here about the mechanologist. I think there's a lot of stuff that could potentially develop over time, and don't let it catch you by surprise. So in the meantime, if you like what I'm doing, if you're happy and excited that we're seeing all this stuff on Fab, leave that in the comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking, and go Commando.